The buy box setting only get triggered when you are the buy box winner. This is another important feature because some competitor, for example, Amazon's Repricer, they don't reprice up. And that is not good because you want to use all the opportunity to reprice up and get the profit. So in this case, for example, you can see this is when you are in the buy box. Right now, the buy box setting is set to raise your buy box price to maximize the profit. And to within, it means you're going to go closer to the next seller. So for example, if you want the buy box at $10 and the next FBA seller is at $12, right now, the way it's set right now, the system is going to put you at $11.99. So basically it's going to go closer to the next seller and undercut that seller by 1 penny. So the system can basically help you keep the buy box and maximize your profit. If going to $11.99 still wins you the buy box, then you're maximizing your profit. If it doesn't, then it means you're going to lose the buy box in that particular moment. But then the normal repricing setting will be triggered again. So you will start doing the same thing you were doing before and try to win the buy box again. In the buy box setting, also, you can choose different competitors. For example, sometimes you can decide to compete against the FBM seller, but then when you are in the buy box, to not consider them. That could be an option. So that's why we split the choosing the competitors between the normal repricing strategy and when you are in the buy box. If we go down a bit more, we have another very important part of our repricing rules are the advanced setting. This part is what I have introduced briefly in the beginning, is where you can decide to have different behavior depending on who you're competing with. Since this rule is set to compete against the buy box winner, the buy box winner is only one at any given time. So if the buy box winner is an FBM seller, for example, and you have included the FBM seller, you can decide to not use the same strategy that you were using for the FBA, but maybe you want to add a percentage to your price because we know that an FBA can win the buy box over an FBM even if it's priced a bit higher. So in that case, basically what you can do is to set a different behavior, and you can say to price, for example, buy box price plus, let's say 5%. So in this particular scenario, it means that if the buy box is won by an FBM seller, your price is going to be their price plus 5%. This can also be set differently in the same rule for FBA versus FBA and FBA versus Amazon. If you want to be a bit more aggressive against Amazon, for example, you can do that. One thing I noticed from some of our customers is that sometimes they might tend to match the other FBA seller, but to undercut Amazon by a penny, if that's the preferred method, because of course we know every seller is different, but sometimes it might be better to try to undercut Amazon without undercutting other FBA sellers. If you have FBM listing, you can do also some advanced setting where you are the FBM and you are competing against FBA. In that case, for example, you would like to undercut a bit more because you are the FBM and you're trying to win the buy box. So these advanced settings are really good to help you set different behavior without having to keep changing your rules. So you don't really need to set one rule for your FBM, one rule for your FBA, or you don't need to set a rule for when FBA are competing with one type and when FBA is competing with the other. You can have everything in one rule. Of course, I also suggest to customers after they've been using BQool for a while to maybe have several rules prepared just in case, so that you can really have, let's say, one behavior for every situation. But that is usually, to me, is most important when you know your product well, you have been using the repricing for a while, and you have noticed some things that will improve your repricing if you have different rules. But again, this is really always up to our users and to sellers to just check how their pricing is going, and after a while, just making some small changes to optimize their repricing. Lastly, in the rule, we also have some custom setting. Basically, these are ways to exclude or include some type of seller. You can see in here, you can either, for example, sometimes sellers are too aggressive. You just don't want to follow them. That's it. And so you can just exclude a seller by their ID. So if we have that hijacker that is coming and trying to lower the prices very, very much, very fast, you can just exclude them. And if they're the one going down and they should be targeted, the system will still not target them. You can exclude other type like sellers with free shipping. Well, there's a lot of these filters. The one that is most important for us and for you, I guess, as well, is to exclude seller with the quarter product. This is especially important if you are using a rule set to compete with the lowest price, because sometimes the quarter product might be lower on purpose, so you don't want to follow them. You exclude them, and then the system is not going to target them. I believe when you are using a rule set to compete with the buy box, if the back order product is still winning the buy box, you probably still want to compete with them. But that's just because your main focus is the buy box. So I would say this setting, turn on and off, it's mostly depending on who you're competing with. If you're selling the used item, you can also set this setting to only compete against, for example, the same condition. So if you have a like new items, you're only going to compete against other like new items, and it's going to exclude everything that is below that. So it's going to exclude a good condition or poor condition, all that. You can also decide same or better and so on. The used item can only compete against other used item. You cannot compete. You cannot make your used item compete against the new item. This is mostly Amazon limitation, because Amazon is using two completely different systems to decide who's the buy box. There's actually two buy boxes, a used one and the new one. So new item cannot compete with used item and vice versa. So this is briefly our repricing rule settings, and each rule can be completely changed and customized to fit your repricing needs. When a rule is created or edited, you're going to see them here. And when you go to the manage listing, you can choose which rule will be assigned to each listing. So you can, for example, use the filter and say there's 100 products that you filtered before. Well, I'm going to use the rule called compete for the buy box, maximize profit. These other products, you want to be, let's say, maybe more aggressive because they are slow product, they're selling slowly. So you want to be a bit more competitive, a bit more aggressive. You can assign a different rule. If we go back to manage listing, I also want to show you that we do offer some bulk actions, because we know that when you have a lot of listings, you don't want to do this kind of operation on each listing. It will be a bit too time consuming. So we do offer some bulk action. So you can use the filter first to decide which listing will be using the bulk action. You can also group listings together. So basically, let's say you have to filter them only once. If you filter listings that are all the same product, or they're all with one specific, let's say, for example, they don't have the buy box winner and so on, you can group them. And so every time you're going to click on the group, you're going to recall them. Basically, as using a filter is the same. The moment you select the listing, you can select them that way, or with a select all, you can use this comprehensive list of action. Actually, if I only select, let's say, enable, there's going to be one more that is post repricing. It means that you can select a lot of listings that are repricing enabled, that are actually repricing, and then you can come here, use post repricing, and the repricing will post to all of them. The same, it can be done on the opposite side. So you can select listings that are currently not repricing, and you can enable them in both. But I would say the main bulk action that we offer is the one we briefly saw before, is the bulk action to set your min, max price, and your rule on multiple listings. So you can choose which operation to do. You can do 3 of them in the same moment, or you can do only one of them. The easiest to understand is obviously set the rule. You can set the same rule for multiple listings, so you don't have to do that for each one of them. And then you can set your min and max prices with the bulk action. So you can base your min price on your current live price, for example. And you can say the min price is my current live price minus 50%. If you have input cost value for your item, you can actually use that cost to calculate your min price or max price. So for example, you can say that your min price is going to be your cost plus 10%. Fixed pricing means, for example, if you have multiple products that you want the same min price for all of them, then you can just say that your min price for all of them is going to be, let's say, $10. Then also is an option. But the most advanced one are the last two, profit margin and ROI. This is not offered on the basic plan. The lowest plan is offered from the $50 plan and up. Basically, you can say for all this listing, let's say 100 listing, set the min price as 200% ROI or 80% ROI. This calculation will automatically download the Amazon fees from your Amazon, from Amazon, and it's going to calculate the ROI like we saw before on a single listing with the profit calculator. In this case, the system will do that in bulk to all the listings. This operation might take some time, obviously, because it's a big calculation. But at the same time, that operation is going to stay behind while you're doing other operations. So you can start this operation and then do other things. And then you can come here again and check in this section. You can see when you started the last operation, and you can see if the operation has finished and how many listings have succeeded. Some might fail because of some reason. For example, you might have forgot to put the cost value. Without the cost value, you cannot calculate ROI, or there could be other reason. In here, you will be able to download a small report that can tell you for each listing what was the problem if the calculation was not done properly. So the bulk action can really help you set your min-max prices quickly, but at the same time, by guaranteeing that you're not losing profit or you're losing money on your listing. So as a suggestion, since I have been also checking our users' cases and helping them through the support, it is very important in the beginning to set the correct min and max prices, because min and max prices are, but the min prices mostly are because you don't want to lose money, obviously, on your list. And the max price is also because Amazon in the last year they became a bit more strict on the potential pricing error.